There are stories that defy explanation, stories that creep into your mind late at night, making you question what's real and what isn't. Tonight, we bring you 5 chilling tales, mysteries that remain unsolved, encounters that defy logic, and whispers of something lurking just beyond our understanding. Are they myths, coincidences, or is there something more sinister at play? Sit back, turn off the lights, and prepare yourself, because these stories might just keep you up tonight. In 2017, a 28-year-old hiker named Daniel Lewis set off on a solo trip through the Appalachian Mountains. An experienced outdoorsman, he had enough supplies for 3 days. But Daniel never returned. Rescue teams searched for weeks. They found his camp, his backpack, even his journal. But no sign of Daniel. The last entry in his journal read, "The trees are whispering tonight. I think they're calling my name." Then, 1 year later, Daniel's phone was found. It was lying on a trail 30 miles from his last known location. The battery was dead, but the SD card was intact. Investigators found photos, hundreds of them. Most showed the forest taken at night, but the last photo was different. It showed Daniel staring into the camera, eyes wide with terror, and behind him, a tall, shadowy figure with glowing eyes. Locals say the mountains are cursed. Some who venture deep enough claim to hear footsteps behind them, but when they turn around, nothing is there. A few have reported seeing glimpses of figures darting between the trees, always just out of focus. Some believe it's the spirits of lost hikers, trapped in the wilderness forever. Others say it's something older, something watching. Hikers who camp in the area sometimes wake to find their belongings disturbed, as if someone or something has been searching through them. But the most terrifying encounters happen at night. A few survivors tell of hearing whispers right outside their tents, voices murmuring their names in the dark. One man even claimed he saw a face peering in through the tent flap, pale, elongated, and grinning. As more people disappeared, the rumors grew darker. Some speculated that Daniel had been taken by the same entity that haunted the mountains, his spirit now joining the whispers that called out in the night. Others believe he found something he shouldn't have, a hidden truth buried deep in the wilderness, waiting for its next victim. A retired ranger named Bill Carter, who spent decades patrolling the area, once recounted a chilling experience. One winter night, he heard a voice outside his cabin, calling for help. But when he opened the door, there was no one there, just a set of footprints leading into the woods. They stopped abruptly, as if whatever left them had simply vanished. He never spoke of it again. Another story tells of a group of hikers who found a small wooden cabin, deep in the mountains, not marked on any map. The inside was dusty, abandoned, except for a single, fresh footprint on the floor. When they turned to leave, the door slammed shut behind them. Seconds later, they heard shuffling sounds outside. When they finally forced the door open, the forest was silent. But their footprints were gone, as if they had never been there. To this day, no one knows what happened to Daniel Lewis. His case remains open, and the whispers in the trees, some say they've heard them too. In 1998, the prestigious Lancaster Academy, an old private school in England, was forced to shut down one of its classrooms, not due to maintenance issues or overcrowding, but because something far more sinister lurked within its walls. It all started with whispers. Students assigned to room 3B often arrived early to prepare for class. But before the teacher entered, they would hear soft voices drifting through the air, voices that had no apparent source. At first, they dismissed it as an echo, a trick of the mind. But as the days passed, the whispers became clearer, and they were calling them by name. Emily Carter, A particularly curious student decided to record the strange sounds with a tape recorder. She played the tape back during lunch, expecting static or muffled chatter. Instead, she heard a distinct, chilling voice, a child's voice, whispering a plea, "Don't let them find me." When she showed the tape to her teacher, he dismissed it as a prank. But then more disturbances followed. Desks scraped against the wooden floor when no one was near them. Books flew off shelves in the library, always landing open on the same page. The air in room 3B was often icy cold, even in the summer months. The situation escalated when a janitor, Mr. Wainwright, made a chilling discovery. While cleaning out the attic, he stumbled upon an old wooden desk covered in dust. Carved deep into the surface was a name, Lillian Carter. Curious, he asked around, but none of the teachers recognized the name. That is, until one of the oldest faculty members paled at the mention. Lillian Carter had been a student at Lancaster Academy in 1923, and she had vanished without a trace. Digging into the archives, the school staff uncovered disturbing reports from the early 1900s. Students had disappeared under mysterious circumstances. Teachers had resigned abruptly, some without even collecting their belongings. An old yearbook contained an eerie class photo, the students of 1923, all lined up neatly. But in the far right corner, there was something unsettling. A blurred, shadowy figure stood among them, barely visible, as if it had been watching them all along. Paranormal investigators were called in to spend a night inside room 3B. They set up recording devices and infrared cameras, expecting to capture minor anomalies. But what they documented was far beyond their expectations. The footage showed chairs shifting on their own, shadows darting across the walls, and the final audio recording sent shivers down their spines. A child's voice, crystal clear, whispering, "Help me." They locked me in. The next day, Lancaster Academy made a decision. Room 3B was permanently sealed, its door locked, its windows covered. No one was allowed inside. But even after the room was abandoned, the whispers never truly stopped. To this day, former students who walk past the old classroom say they can hear something. A faint voice, barely audible, calling from behind the door. Some claim to see fleeting shadows in the hallway, reflections in the windows that shouldn't be there. And every so often, someone finds a new carving in the wooden door of room 3B. Just 3 words, scratched deep into the surface. "Let me out." Deep within Blackwood Forest, an ancient woodland shrouded in mist and mystery, there exists a chilling legend. The locals call it the Whispering Forest. It is said that if you listen closely at night, you can hear voices murmuring through the trees, calling your name, luring you deeper into the darkness. Those who follow the whispers are never seen again. In 2014, a group of 5 friends, Jake, Emily, Noah, Sarah, and Chris, set out to explore the legend. They were experienced hikers, well prepared for a weekend in the wild. They had heard the stories but dismissed them as folklore, campfire tales meant to scare children. Armed with cameras and recording equipment, they planned to document their adventure, convinced they would debunk the myth. The first night was uneventful. They set up camp near a small clearing, cooked dinner over a fire, and laughed about the so-called haunted forest. But just as they were settling in for the night, Noah heard something, soft, distant whispers floating through the trees. At first, he thought it was the wind, but as he listened closer, he realized the voices were speaking words. His name, Noah. "Come here, we've been waiting." A shiver ran down his spine. He turned to tell the others, but when he mentioned the whispers, they only chuckled. "It's just your imagination," Emily said. rolling her eyes. But then Sarah froze. "Wait," she whispered. "I hear it too." The laughter stopped. The group fell silent, straining their ears. And then, ever so faintly, they all heard it. The same eerie voice, soft yet insistent, calling each of their names. The whispers seemed to come from all directions, circling them like unseen predators in the dark. Jake, the most skeptical of the group, grabbed a flashlight. "It's probably some weird echo effect," he muttered, stepping away from the fire. "I'm gonna check it out." Before anyone could stop him, he disappeared into the shadows. Minutes passed, then an hour. Jake never came back. Panic set in. They searched the woods, calling his name, but there was no sign of him. The forest seemed different now, darker, denser, the trees towering over them like silent watchers. Noah swore the branches moved when he wasn't looking, shifting ever so slightly, closing in. Eventually, they had no choice but to wait until morning. But none of them slept. All night, the whispers continued, growing louder, more urgent. And just before dawn, Emily swore she saw a figure standing at the edge of the clearing, tall, distorted, its face a blur of shifting shadows. When the sun rose, they searched again, but Jake was gone. The only trace left behind was his backpack, lying in the middle of a narrow trail miles away from where he had last been seen. Inside the front pocket was a single note, written in trembling handwriting. "They won't let me leave." The authorities were called. A massive search ensued. No tracks, no signs, nothing. Jake had vanished. As the weeks passed, the other four returned home, forever changed. Nightmares plagued them. Sometimes, they would wake in the dead of night, hearing whispers just outside their windows. 1 year later, a hunter deep in Blackwood Forest found something disturbing. An old, tattered jacket hanging from a tree. It was Jake's. Inside the pocket was another note. 3 words, smeared in dirt. "I am home." Rumors about the forest grew wilder. Some claimed Jake had been taken by spirits, his soul forever bound to the woods. Others believed something ancient and unseen resided there, watching, waiting. Hikers who dared enter Blackwood Forest often reported unsettling experiences. Shadows moving against the wind, cold fingers brushing against their skin, whispers calling their names. In 2016, another group of campers vanished. Their tents remained undisturbed, their belongings neatly arranged. But something was missing: footprints. The forest floor showed no sign of departure. It was as if they had simply ceased to exist. To this day, Blackwood Forest remains an enigma. Some still venture into its depths, drawn by curiosity or disbelief. But those who hear the whispers, well, they say that once the forest calls your name, it never forgets. So if you ever find yourself near Blackwood Forest, and the trees begin to whisper, don't answer. In the summer of 1982, a man named Richard Owens walked into a diner on the outskirts of a small town in Colorado. He ordered a cup of coffee, chatted briefly with the waitress, and then walked out the front door. He was never seen again. At first, no one thought much of it. People came and went all the time. But when his car was found abandoned just a block away with the keys still in the ignition, police launched an investigation. What they found was disturbing. Surveillance footage from the diner showed Richard exiting the building, stepping onto the sidewalk, and then vanishing. He didn't walk out of frame. He didn't duck into an alley. He simply disappeared into thin air. Authorities scoured the area, searching for any sign of him. They interviewed the waitress, the cook, and the 2 other customers who had been there that night. No one had seen anything unusual, except for one elderly man, who swore he saw Richard turn to look over his shoulder before he vanished, as if someone had called his name. Weeks passed and the case went cold. But then, something even stranger happened. In 1995, 13 years after Richard's disappearance, a drifter walked into a police station in a different town, nearly 200 miles away. He was disoriented, confused, and wore the exact same clothes Richard had been wearing the night he disappeared. Even stranger, he hadn't aged a day. The man insisted he was Richard Owens. He had no memory of where he had been, only that one moment he was stepping out of the diner, and the next he was standing in the middle of a highway at night, nearly getting hit by a truck. DNA tests confirmed his identity, but doctors couldn't explain how he hadn't aged. His fingerprints matched, his dental records were identical, and his family recognized him immediately. But to them, only a few moments had passed since they last saw him, while in reality 13 years had gone by. Richard became an obsession for researchers, conspiracy theorists, and paranormal investigators. Some believed he had been abducted by aliens. Others thought he had been caught in a time slip, transported from one moment to another without experiencing the years in between. A few even speculated that he had wandered into another dimension, one that had only released him when it was done with him. But Richard himself never found answers. He spent the rest of his life searching for the truth, but he never discovered where he had been or why he had returned. And then, in 2011, something even stranger happened. One night, Richard walked out of his home to check the mailbox. His wife, watching from the window, saw him step outside and vanish, just like before. This time, he never came back. His case remains one of the strangest disappearances in modern history. Was he a man lost in time? A victim of forces beyond our understanding? Or was something, or someone, calling him back? No one knows. But if you ever hear your name whispered in the night and feel the urge to turn around, think twice. Because Richard Owens did, and he was never seen again. For decades, the people of Ravensshire have spoken in hushed whispers about the train that never arrived. The story dates back to 1948, when the Midnight Express from Blackmore to Ravensshire vanished without a trace. On that fateful night, the train left Blackmore Station with 20 passengers and a full crew. Witnesses saw it disappear into the forested hills, its lights cutting through the thick fog. But it never reached Ravensshire. When authorities searched the tracks the next morning, they found nothing. No wreckage, no bodies, not even a scrap of metal. It was as if the train had simply ceased to exist. At first, people assumed it had derailed in the dense wilderness. Search parties combed the area for weeks, but no signs of a crash were found. The tracks were perfectly intact, stretching uninterrupted from one town to the next. Then, strange reports started to emerge. Some claimed to hear the distant sound of a train whistle echoing through the hills at night. Others swore they saw ghostly lights weaving through the trees, moving at the speed of a locomotive. And then, there were the voices, whispers carried on the wind, calling the names of the missing passengers. In 1973, a railway worker named Henry Dawson was performing routine maintenance near the old Ravensshire station when he stumbled upon something chilling. Buried beneath years of dirt and foliage, he found a rusted pocket watch. Inside, an inscription, "To my dearest Margaret from James, 1948. A quick investigation confirmed the watch belonged to James Elcott, a passenger on the vanished train. But how had it ended up there with no sign of its owner? Over the years, the legend of the vanishing train only grew. Some believe it slipped through a crack in time, trapped in an endless loop, forever traveling between stations that no longer exist. Others say it was claimed by something unnatural, swallowed by the mist that covered the hills that night. In 1995, a group of paranormal investigators set up cameras along the abandoned tracks, hoping to capture evidence of the phantom train. What they recorded sent chills down their spines. At exactly midnight, the air seemed to shimmer, and for a brief moment, the sound of screeching metal filled the night. The footage showed a shadowy outline of a train rushing past, its windows dark, its passengers unseen, and just as suddenly as it appeared, it was gone. To this day, no one knows what truly happened to the Midnight Express. But if you ever find yourself near the old Ravensshire tracks at midnight, listen closely. Because some say, if the fog is thick enough, you might just hear the distant echo of a whistle and the mournful cries of those still trapped aboard. And so, these are the stories that still haunt those who lived them. Tales of the unexplained, the unsolved, and the unexplainable. But the real question is, do you believe them? Perhaps the next strange noise you hear in the night isn't just the wind. Maybe that shadow in the corner of your eye is watching. And maybe, just maybe, you'll be the next story whispered about in the dark. If you want more mysteries like these, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. And if you've ever had an eerie experience yourself, let us know in the comments. We'll see you in the next one, if you dare.